demo where what I'm going to try to do is take this core location and map-based app that we've been developing in class and store the data in the database. And once it's there, then I can retrieve it and look at the rides that I've done in the past. And it's there permanently, which is pretty cool. And that would be on your device. All right, so to start this out, first thing I want to do is to change the storyboard to include the stuff that I'm going to need. So I'm going to need two new view controllers. One of them for a table view that's going to have a set of rides, and another one that I'm going to use to actually display the ride that I've done in the past. So bring that up, view controller. And just copy it. No, I can't just copy it. Another one as well. And then I'm going to need to create two files to run these controllers. So one of them is going to be the rides controller. It's going to be UI view controller. Wait, I didn't want it to do that. Okay, there's my rides controller. And the other one is going to be the detail controller. And put that in the same place. Make sure they're in the right place, which they're not. You can see these are just view controllers so far, nothing special. And I want to do one other thing. We'll create one other file here. I'm going to need to create the file for the core data itself. So to create that, I just come down here to the core data here, not the mapping model, just the data model. That's all I'm going to need. Put that in here as well. And this is called model, which means that this core data context is also going to be called model by default. All right, and that's going to be important because I'm going to have to modify app delegate. All right, and to show exactly what I mean here, in app delegate, I need to have a couple things from a project that started out as one using core data. Okay, so this is a brand new project here, and I started it up with core data. So what that's going to have in here is then going to be a few things that I want to copy over. In particular, the persistent container and the save context. All right, and now this thing can go away, period. I'll copy them in here. And I want to change one thing. It says let container equal the NS persistent container, and the name is blah, blah is the name of that project that I just created. So I want to change that to model. Otherwise it'll crash, and you'll get one of these crashes that just pops you to the beginning of app data, and you have no idea what's going on. Okay, and it says undeclared type NS persistent container. What's going on there is that you have to import core data pretty much everywhere. Okay, in fact, let me just do that right now. This is the map controller that I have. That's going to have core data. The detail controller, that's going to have core data. And the rides is going to have core data as well. Okay. There's one other thing that I'm going to want to copy into app delegate, which I forgot to print out or do anything with. So let me just copy it from over here. And all that is the stuff that I showed you actually in the slides, which is basically that I want to have a little quicker way of addressing the view context in app delegate. All right. So let me just copy those as well. Go away. And then this is in my app delegate, and I'm just going to put it right here. Okay, in persistent container I don't really care about, but that's just used to create the view context. And these are both static variables, so that means they're class variables. I'm going to reference those from app delegate, the actual class, as opposed to an instance. Okay, now I can go back to the storyboard. Now I've created whatever I need to create. And in this storyboard, I have these two new controllers, one of which is going to be the rides controller. Good. And the other is going to be detail controller. And that's good too. The detail controller is just going to have a big Mapkit on it. Let me just make it use up the entire screen. And over here, I want to copy that outlet into the details controller. That's just the map view. And then coming back over here in the rides controller, what I'm going to want to put in here is going to be a table view. All right, so I'm going to copy the table view in here. And again, I'm just, to make this easy, going to pin it to all the sides. Okay. And this table view, then of course, I'm going to have to copy an outlet into the rides controller. Good. All right. Now coming back to this table view, I have to set that up. Come over to the attributes inspector for that. It's dynamic prototypes. That's what you want because you might have more than some small number of actual things or rows in your table. So the number of prototype cells I'm going to have is going to be 1, and the prototype cell that I want to have is not going to be a custom. It's just going to be a basic, and I'm just going to call this the reuse identifier standard. And I need to use this, of course, for the DQ stuff. All right, so that should be good there. Now, one last thing I want to do at this point. The way I'm going to get to this detail controller is I'm going to select a ride over here. And so what I need to do is have a segue from the prototype there over to the detail, and that's going to be a show. All right, and that's the setup. Now that I've got that, I can start doing the work. All right, and the work is going to start in map controller. So this is where I'm going to create core data and save it. And the way that I'm going to do that is here in on-off switch, the action. When it goes off, I'm going to stop updating the location, and then I'm also going to save ride. I don't have a save ride, of course, yet, but I'm going to create it. Okay. A couple other things that have to happen here. I want to keep track of all the points in a given ride. So in the beginning of my map controller here, I want to have a points variable. So this is going to be var all points, and this is going to be CL location 2D. Yeah, that's it. CL location coordinate 2D. It's going to be an array of these, and it's initially going to be empty. Okay. So now I can come back down here, and whenever I come into Location Manager did update, I'm going to have this array of locations. And so what I can do is just add those to all points. So all points plus equals locations dot map dot coordinate, and that'll do it. So now I have points in all points. All right, and all that's good. And then when I come down here and save ride, I'm going to have all those points, and I'll be good to go at that point. So at the very end of this, I'm going to have to zero this out so I don't add points to multiple different rides. So let me just do that here so I don't forget. And then at the beginning of this, what I need to do is create a ride. Okay, so to create a ride, I need to create. I just need to create a ride class, and this is the class that I get out of the database structure, the core data, and I haven't created those yet. So let's go back and do that. So I come here to model XC data, and I've got no entities. I want to create two entities, one for the ride itself and one for the locations, the points. And then I'll map those two together. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a ride. It's going to be called ride. And I'm going to have a bunch of different attributes here. I'm going to have the name. I'm going to have distance. I'm going to have time. I'm going to have when. And that should be enough. And for the name, it's got to be a string. You've got to set all these different types up. Distance is going to be a double. Time is going to be a date. And when, no, okay. When is going to be a date. Time is going to be a duration. And I'll just say it's going to be a number of seconds, so that's going to be an int, say 64. Why not? Okay, so there's the first. Now, there are two different editor styles, and in one of my pictures in the slides, you saw a different one. So this is the graphical version. So there's not a lot going on here because I only have one, but let me add another entity. All right, now I have two. You see they sort of flip around like this. All right, this guy is going to be a location, and then I need to have several different attributes. I need latitude, longitude, elevation, when, and that might be it. So latitude, longitude, altitude, and when. All right, now I need to set the types for those. There's no sort of, I can do this two different ways. I could go back into the regular editor style and do it. Or you could bring up the inspector over here, and this is the data inspector. And from here, you can set the type. Okay, so right now it's set to be this entity, which needs to be changed to location. And then I can click on hello. All right, so now I'm having problems trying to get it to select those. All right, let's fine. Okay, I'm going to come back here. Altitude is going to be an integer 64. Latitude is going to be a double. Longitude is going to be a double. And when is going to be a date. And then back here, I can set up the relationship between the two. And that's really easy to do. It's just control drag, just like everything else that we've done. Now I have a relationship. And I have names for it in different places. Now in ride, it's going to be locations. In location, it's going to be ride. And the only other thing that's different here is that I'm going to have a sort of asymmetric relationship, and that there are going to be multiple locations that go to a single ride. And so it's going to be what's called in database parlance, excuse me, a many-to-one or one-to-many relationship between these two different entities. There are going to be many locations that map to a single ride. And so to set that up, we need to come in here and get this thing to actually recognize selection. Why is it not doing that? Yeah, all right, locations, poof. And you notice there's several things going on here. It says type to one. This could also be to many. And that's what I want to do because the other end of that is going to be many locations. And you see the little double arrow here versus a single arrow. So that means to many is on this side. There are going to be many locations mapped to a single ride. All right, so now I've set up this relationship. And by the way, there's also this inverse here, which says what the inverse relationship with the other side is. This is what I've selected here. Is locations. The inverse is ride. And if I come over here and select ride, the inverse is going to be location. So set that up automatically, which is pretty cool. Now I mentioned very briefly, I think, in the slides about the delete rule. Here's how you'd specify that. Nullify, again, means just that if I delete a ride, the locations that were mapped to that ride stay, but the ride relationship just goes to null. The other thing I could do is cascade, which would mean that if the ride is deleted, everything that's all the locations that are mapped to it are also deleted. And then finally, The other thing I could do is just deny, which says that, well, I can't delete a ride as long as anything's in a relationship with it. So normally we just leave it as nullify, and that's fine. Okay, so now I have location, I have ride, I have core data set up, and I can start using it. So let's go back into map controller, where I want to actually save these things. So what I'm going to do is just create a new ride. I need to get the syntax of this right. Okay, so let ride equal ride. Very complicated stuff here, huh? And I have to set up, why isn't it helping me out here? Let me build. Okay, so one of the things that's a little bit confusing about this, we've created this here, and what's going on underneath the hood is that other Swift files are being created that actually instantiate these as classes, but you can't see them, all right? And you can actually find these things. They're down in a build folder if you really want to look for them. But you can't find them through the normal interface here, so we're just going to ignore that for now. But anyway, I just did a build, and hopefully what that means now is that it's going to understand what I'm saying when I say let ride equal ride. Yeah, the problem might have been that I didn't say let first. Sorry about that. Context, and the context that we want is just going to be the application delegate.view context that we set up before. All right, so now we have a ride. Yes. And I can say just, instead of using the value or set value and all that stuff that I talked about briefly, which is what you had to do until recently, I can just use dot notation, because these are actually Swift classes. All right, so I can say ride.name is equal to 1. Okay, and I want to save this because I want to have different names for each one. So let's say var ride name is going to be equal to 1. And so the ride name is going to be ride, and then ride name. And then, of course, ride name has to be incremented, so I don't have collisions. No collision. All right, so I set the ride name. The ride distance is just going to be equal to distance. This is something I set up last time up here. Distance is incremented by distance in miles for each one of these different locations that I get. Ride.when is just going to be the current time. Yeah, that's all I really need. All right. Now, for points in all points. Now these are going to be locations, right? So I need to actually map these things. Map. There they are, right? All points. Oh, they're already coordinates right there. Okay, forget that. For point and all points, then I need to create a new location. So let location be equal to, I'm going to call it loc. I don't want to type. Equals location. And I have to have a context here. And it's going to be the same one, although I can now just use ride dot the context thing. What's it called? There it is, manage object context. All right, so I could have just said application delegate.view context again. But instead what I wanted to do was just use this approach, which would make sure that these are going to be in the same context. Now I'm not sure what the problem is. Must be unroute to a value. Yeah. How about this? Done? Good. Build failed. All right, something else is going on. What else is going on? Map view controller. Is that good? All right, back here. I've created a new point now, and I just need to instantiate that point. So loc.latitude is going to be equal to point.latitude. dot latitude, loc dot longitude is going to be equal to point dot longitude, loc dot elevation, altitude is going to be equal to point dot altitude. Oh, yeah. Hello. The elevation. Does a point? A point does not have that. Okay, so what I should really have done is create all points as a location because that's where the altitude is. But I'll just ignore it now, and that just means altitude is going to be nil, which is fine. And then finally, loc.when is going to be a date. Okay, and now I have to establish the relationship between these. So I have to say loc dot. If you remember, the relationship on the location side was called ride. So I'll just say ride equal ride. Poof, done. And I could do it the other way around. Although it's a little bit more complicated because if I did it from ride, then the set of locations is a set that conform to this. And so you actually have to use a function that's been created for that. And I haven't shown you that, but you can look it up. Or I will put it up someplace. In any case, this is equivalent to it and it works. So now I've got that, and all I have to do at this point is save. So do try application delegate app delegate dot view context dot save catch. If it saves, I just want to print bad stuff happened. Okay, so poof, that's done. It's saved. And let's see if it works. Now, I think I called this the wrong name. Save ride. Good. Let's do it. Okay, I'm in here. Start things up. Starts tracking. Then I end it. At least I try to. Okay. All right, this is where it sometimes crashes if you've got something set up incorrectly. Let's see what happens. Yes. So my assumption now is that everything's going to work fine. So I'll just set the breakpoint here. Yeah, everything good. Okay, so now that I've actually created a ride and stuck it where I need to go, then at this point I need to actually have a way to get to the rides controller. All right, so let me go back to the storyboard because I neglected set up a button to go to the rides. All right, so we'll just call that rides. And we will just go here. Show. Wait, what should I do? I don't know. Show. Okay, so now this is going to go to our rides controller. So let's go over there and start setting that up. So the rides controller is just a table view. So there are a few things that we have to do there, obviously, if you remember. And I need to, this is a table view that's going on. So I need to set up those special functions for the table view. So to do that, I want to set up this table view delegate first because that's going to help me. And there's also the other one, UI table view data source. Okay, so now it's going to complain, presumably, that I don't really conform. Right, do I want to add protocol stubs? Yes, thank you. All right, the number of sections. Where's the number of sections? It didn't create that. Huh, that's interesting. Maybe it's not really necessary. Number of sections is just going to be 1. The number of rows in the section is going to be the number of things that we have. So I'm going to define a variable here, which is just going to be the string names. And it's initially empty. And so now I can just say Number of rows in section is going to be the rides.count. Hello. And then this is where, of course, you have to do a little bit more effort. So what you have to do is say let cell equal DQ. What is it? Table view, sorry. Table view, which I have, .dq, reusable identifier with the index path. That's what I want. The string that we're going to have here, this is just going to be standard. Remember, I set up the cell prototype as a standard, and then the index path is just going to be the index path. Now, if let my cell equal the cell as, actually I don't even need to do that because this is not custom cell. This is just a standard cell. So what I can just do is set things up right now. So cell dot text label, if that's the name of the label, dot text is going to be equal to rides index path dot row. And then finally, I'm going to return cell. So the only thing left to do here then is to actually instantiate rides up here. So to do that, I'm going to do it in view.did_load, and this is where I have to actually create a query to find all the different rides. So the way that we do that is a little funky. Before I go on, delegates. I don't want to forget to do the delegates. So table view.delegate is going to be equal to self. Table view.data source is also going to be equal to me. And now I can start setting this up. So let the query, which has to be ns fetch request on ride, be equal to ride.fetch request. Okay, so this is kind of weird syntax. You actually have to always establish what this, put this type annotation here for the query, because there's actually two different fetch requests. There's one in your customized class, and there's also one that's in NS object, which is the superclass. And for some reason, I can't figure out which one to take unless you actually specify what this type is. So be sure to say, do it exactly like this. All right, so now I have a fetch request. And I don't really need to customize this, right? I mean, we talked in class, or we talked in the slides about setting up sorting order for all the different things that we have. I don't care about that here. I also showed you how to set up predicates, or talked about predicates at least. And we don't care about that either, because for right now, I just want to make sure everything is actually in the database. And I want to return all of them. So I'm just going to go ahead and execute it right now. All right. So if let results equal to, what do we have to do here? We have to go to do this in the context.view context.fetch. That's going to be my query. If it worked, then rides is going to be equal to results dot results is going to be my rides here. So all I want is the names dot name, and that's an optional string. So close it, and that should do it. Okay. See what happens. Here we are again. Let me just do one more ride. Okay, I think we're on the freeway now. This is going pretty quickly. 76 miles an hour. Yeah, we're definitely in the freeway. And this is definitely a car. Okay, kill it. Keep going. And I should have a couple rides now. Now they might have the same name, but I don't think they will because I changed the name. So let's go to rides and see what happens. Poof, I got 2 rides. Yes. Now, when I click on them, nothing happens. I mean, I come to a map, right? Because remember, I control dragged from the prototype over to the map. So all I need to do now is set up the map correctly for whichever ride I want. And then I'm done. And then it's finished. Okay? out the detail controller, which is going to show the actual ride that happened in its entirety. So if I look at this, I go to rides, there's only one ride in here, and I've got this nice long string. It says it's 0.8 miles long, there are 41 points, and this is the time. And if I click on it, well, it crashes, but I mean, you can figure out what the crash is, but there are any number of things that I just modified that could cause that. Undefined key for set value. Label outlet, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Well, we're going to fix that. So, first of all, let's make sure that we have everything set up right in the storyboard. So what we've got now is a single label here. And that label outlet is right here. It's exactly what we want, label outlet. And then we also have the map view. And I've drawn out an outlet over here. Okay, so the idea is I'll just put information here about the ride itself, and then I'll have the map view over here. So to get this going, let's go back to the rides controller here. So the communication between these, at the prepare segue, is just through the status here. Basically, it's just a ride name, and in fact, we should make it reflect that. Okay, so we're assuming that all the ride names are unique, which is not true. That's not enforced by core data, and I haven't put any logic in to do that, but let's just assume it's true for now. So ride name is going to be the name, the unique name of the ride, and then I can use that in detail controller here to find all the points for it. Okay, so let's go back to rides, first of all, and take out some of the crap that was in there that had all that extra stuff, the number of points and everything, because that's not what we want to have. All right, so here we have the rides. For ride and rides, each one of them is going to have this. What we really want to do is just say result.append, and that's it. So the question is, what's results? Results is still string, so that's good. So this is what we're going to display now in our list of rides. Let's see what that looks like. I want to create one more ride here. Start that up. Okay, we're cruising down the freeway. And let's end it. And I put this new dialog in here. This dialog is just something that adds a text field to the normal alert modal dialog. And then we get the value back from the alert as one of the text fields. Right, so now I've created a second one. And here's what I want to show. These are basically put in random order, or in this case, the order that they're actually created. And we don't want to do that. We probably want to have some sort of sorting going. So let's talk about how to do that. So to do sorts in core data, all we need to do is add a sorter to our query. All right, so here's our query. We're requesting rides, and then we just fetch it. We don't add a sorter. There's no predicates because we want all of them. So let's just add a sorter. So that's sorter equal to ns sort descriptor, and then the key here is going to be the name of the field that we want to sort on, and that's just going to be name. And ascending is going to be true. So, whoops, that's not enough. You actually have to say query dot sorters, sort descriptors, can be equal to an array containing just one thing in this case, the sorter that we have. You can have multiple sort descriptors here, and they are applied in order, but I only have one here. All right, start it up, come down to rides, and now they're sorted, a ride and ride 0, exactly like what we want. All right, so when these things are actually selected, what happens is we come down to prepare for segue, and presumably, let's go there, presumably, we actually match this predicate and come in, and then, let's see, that ride name. I'm not going to do it out here, it's not going to work. question is, did it actually come in? And that's good. I should have looked at that and figured out what the problem was. All right, I'll do that next. So if you click on here, we don't actually come in there. And the complaint. All right, let's see what the complaint is. So the complaint is set value for undefined key, UI view controller, not coding compliant for label outlet. Label outlet does exist, so that's kind of interesting. Something really got messed up in that controller in the storyboard. I killed the entire controller and rebuilt it from scratch. And now, works fine. All right, so this is all I've done so far. I haven't done any centering or anything like that. So here's the name of it, got set up correctly. All right, so now all I have to do is go back and find all those locations, and then I can start displaying things. Okay? All right, so what I want to do is create an overlay. So before I can do that, I have to create the query. Means I have to import core data. And then I have to first create a query, so let query, which is going to be, oh, I never remember the syntax. NS fetch request of ride is what this is. So NS fetch request of location is what I want. And that's going to be equal to location dot fetch request. So there's my query, and then I need a predicate. So that predicate be equal to NS predicate. And the predicate that I'm going to want is defined by a string with whatever arguments I want. And the location, or sorry, the locations that I want are the ones that correspond to the ride whose name is whatever ride name is. All right, so there's some interaction going on. I'm just looking for locations, but I'm looking for locations tied to a specific ride. So the way that you do that is using the dot notation. So what I can say is the predicate is ride, which is the end of the relationship with the rides. So that directs us across to the ride with ride.name equal to percent at sign. And then what I'm going to substitute in there is going to be the ride name. Okay, and so this is a very powerful thing that we're doing here. I'm forming a predicate not just on locations, but it's on the relationships that locations have. All right, so once I have that, then I can set up a sorter. I want to have a sorter, but I won't get into that yet. So let's just say query predicate is going to be equal to predicate. And then delegate dot view context dot fetch request. And the request that we're going to fetch is going to be the query. Okay, so that's going to give us everything that we need there. So let the results be equal to that. And then if let looks equal to results, all right, wait. Yeah, location. Yeah, the problem here is I'm going to try. Okay, so the fetch can throw, so I need to turn this into an optional array. So that's why I need to set lokes, or use the optional binding here, so I can get the locations. All right, so lokes is now going to have all the locations. All right, and all I need to do is turn those into coordinates. So let coords be equal to lokes.map. Now for each one of these, I want to turn it into ns location, no, cl location, coordinate 2D, and I have to specify latitude and longitude. Well, I'll get that from $0.latitude, $0.longitude, and there you go. So now I'm going to have the coordinates in the same order, whatever that order happens to be. All right, now I need to find min and max that so I can figure out where to actually where to center this whole thing. So let's say let min flat be equal to chords dot map dot latitude dot min, and then force it there. And now we have a max latitude doing the same thing. And then I'll do this for a longitude. Okay, so now I have the min, the max, I have the latitude and the longitudes. And I want to center this thing, so I'm going to say let mid lat be equal to min lat plus max lat divided by 2, and let mid longitude be equal to min longe plus max longe divided by 2. Okay, so now I have a point, or I could create a point for the center. Yeah, that's fine. So now let's create the region. So let region be equal to mk region, mk coordinate region. And it has a center and a latitude distance and a longitude distance. Okay, I can do that. So I need a coordinate for that center. Latitude, longitude, mid, lat, mid, longe, long, latitude, meters. I need to figure that out, but let's just put something in fake for the moment. So 500, 500. So map view, center, center region. Region. That's right. Region, animated, sure. Okay. So that's that, but that's not everything that I need to do. I also have to draw it. I haven't drawn it yet. Okay, so let's go back, and I still have those chords, so I can figure that out. So let mk polyline, because that's what it was. Oh, it's let poly be equal to mk polyline. And I have coordinates, okay. So coordinates will be chords.count. And then I say map view dot add overlay. I was not happy. Map view dot add overlay. Poly. Should be fine. Of course, for this to actually work, I have to do that whole rendering thing. Right, so let's do that too. Map view renderer for, okay, that's what we want. Now we have to define it. Func map view renderer. Well, that's gone. I'm expecting auto completion to happen, but it's not happening. So why is that the case? Delegate, set the delegate to me. I don't know. So let's come back to the other one. And here's map view. Map view delegate, see annotation delegate. It looks like it should work fine. I mean, let me do this first. I'll build it so it knows about all the definitions. And was I in a function? No, I was in a function. Okay, bunk, not view. Ah, much better. Render in. That's the one we want. Okay, so if let poly equal to overlay as uncarry polyline, then render equal to a polyline render, and I'm going to pass it poly. No. No. Uncarry poly, line render, pass it poly. Then render dot stroke width, stroke color equal dot green. So dot inlet 3, and then dot view dot add overlay. No, sorry, return render. Else, return just a generic render. With the generic overlay as an argument. Okay, so that should do it. Now I've created the polyline, I've added it, created the renderer. Let's come back here and look at a ride. And there's some stuff going on. All right, what is going on here, you might ask? Why is that such a mess? Well, the reason it's such a mess is because we don't have an ordering on our points, okay? And so those points aren't going to be, the order that they're put into the database is not guaranteed to be the order that they come back out. That's what you have sorters for. Now, unfortunately, we don't really have a good way to sort those things the way things currently stand. So I'm going to do sort of a brute force approach to this. I'm going to come back into our model, and I'm going to change location to actually have an ID. Okay, it has an ID now. That ID is going to be int 64, let's say. And now I have to go back to where we create these things and ensure that we have that actually specified. Okay, so for this to be specified, I'm going to have to sort of keep track of this. So I'm just going to define a variable up here, ID. It's going to be equal to 1. And then, let's see where this happens. This happens down in save, right? It's all the way down here. So before this, so what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to want to put an ID in every one of these. All right. So I have obj.ride name, etc. So I'm going to want to say obj.id is going to be equal to ID. And ID is going to be plus equal to 1, so the next one doesn't get the same one. Okay, so that's happening. But it's not everything I need, because this is starting over at 1 every time I restart the program. And what I need to do is ensure that that doesn't happen. All right, so I'm going to define another function here, func next ID, which is actually going to go into the database and find the current best or highest ID that's there. All right, so we have to create a new query for this. So we're going to say let query be equal to nsfetch request of location. I'm getting better at this. As I say that, equals to location dot fetch request. All right, so there's our query. And then I want to find the maximum ID that's in there anyway. So I can do that. That's pretty easy. What I can do is create a predicate as follows. Let predicate be equal to ns predicate. And this is kind of interesting. and that's predicate, format, and this string is going to be as following. I want to find the maximum ID, so I want ID to be equal to max of ID. There are a lot of little functions like max that all databases have, max and in, etc. So you can put those in those strings, and you can look up the documentation and see what they want to find. And so if the ID is equal to the max ID, then that's the max ID. And I don't have to have any arguments over here. So there's the predicate, so I say query predicate is going to be equal to predicate, and then delegate to context dot fetch, and fetch the query. Okay, so this is going to be results. Let the results be equal to this. Then if let looks equal to results and looks.count greater than 0, then ID let call control. That's why I have to do this looks equals results. So let ID equal to looks 0, first one. And it's vaguely possible that there are more than one that have the same ID. I mean, they shouldn't. I mean, something's gone wrong. But if they're the same ID, it doesn't matter which one I use. So I'll just use the first one. So ID equals this, and then I'm going to return ID plus 1. Else, I'm going to return 1. Okay. And there's going to be problems there, of course, because I haven't defined what this is going to return. That's 64. No, that should be fine. Okay, so now this is going to be the next ID that I'm going to be using. So it's going to return either 1 or the max plus 1. So what I'll do here is then ID equal to max ID. And we should be good to go here. So now over here in the detail, when I actually do the fetch for the locations, I can have a sort to this. All right, so right here I'm just looking for all the locations that have the correct name. But now I can sort them in the right direction. So I'll say let sorter be equal to ns sort descriptor, and that descriptor is going to be a string and boolean. I want to just sort these on ID, and it's going to be ascending yes, true. So then I say query that sort predicates or sort descriptors is going to be equal to an array of the sorters, and then I go for it. Now, there is an issue. The rides that are in there right now don't have IDs, so I can't really use it, so I have to create a new ride. All right, starting out a new ride. And hopefully he turns soon, because that makes it much more, I don't know, much cooler. He's not turning. Okay, well, very good. Now we're turning. All right, so turn this baby off. I'm going to call this AA ride. Now I come back here. And I go to rides, now I have AA ride. Whoa. That's not right. The sorter should have given AA ride precedence over A ride. No. All right, here we go. This is the entire ride right there. Doesn't look like I made the line width equal to 3. Did I forget to do that? Line width is equal to 3. Oh, okay. Now just to make sure that this really is the fix that we think it is, I'm going to come back here and comment out the sort descriptor addition. When I do that, come back into rides, and I look at AA ride, and it's gibberish. You see that's going back and forth all the time there. And that's because those locations come in sort of undefined orders. All right, so that's it. That's all I wanted to do here. I hope you found this useful, and I'll see you in class.